Welcome to Songwriters from Here and Away. My name is Robert Campbell, and today we have Manitoba Hal in the house, and we're going to have a quick chat. Hal, welcome, and where do you live exactly?
Shelburne, Nova Scotia, so
Shelburne.
down in Queens.
So how long have you been there now?
I've been here since 2010.
And you moved from, did you move from Toronto or from Manitoba?
From Winnipeg, from Manitoba, yeah. Which is where the stage name Manitoba Hal comes from, is that I built my career out there and was known pretty much through the world early on as Manitoba Hal, and so I was stuck, even though I live in Nova Scotia. I always say, though, you move your head office, you don't change your brand name, right? It's like, so this is just where I live. It's not, I'm not pretending to be a Nova Scotian. Right, although I love it here, and I hope I'm accepted as a Nova Scotian. But one thing I noticed, especially in Shelburne where I live, is that the community is so welcoming and had what I like to call a Hal-shaped hole in it. And as long as you're willing to be here and choose to be here, not contribute, then they don't care where you're from.
No, I get it. And I found Nova Scotians to be wonderfully welcoming, and I feel at home here.
Yes.
Yeah. So have you been writing a lot?
Not in the last couple of years. The pandemic has taken a real toll on my writing, but I'm starting to get back into it now. I've written a couple of new things that are leading towards a project someday.
Right.
I put out a little demo in the fall of 2022 called the 2022 Demo Sessions. It was really 2 tracks I recorded live in my studio, and they're the first new recordings and new songs since 2019. So I feel pretty excited about that. And I've got a third one on the go right now that's going to take a little time, but it's coming together.
Oh, good. Well, do you want to play a song right off the top here? Do you want to maybe
one
of your new ones or whatever you think? Just let us know.
Yeah, we could do that. I know what I'll do. I'll do this one. This is an older song that I wrote here in Shelburne around 2014, and it's really
for our listeners, you're playing a 4-string ukulele that looks beautiful. It looks lovely wood on it.
Yes, this is a koa wood ukulele. It was made by a builder, a friend of mine named Fred Casey.
Okay.
He's from Winnipeg Beach, Manitoba. And what's different about this ukulele than most ukuleles is this was built and designed to be strung with steel strings.
Oh.
So it is a reinforced neck and braced to take the tension of steel strings, specifically so that I could play a bottleneck slide on it.
Right. Great.
Because that's something I wanted in a ukulele, and I found that I like nylon strings, but they don't sustain, so they're very difficult to get a good slide thing going on with it.
Gotcha.
Evangeline, your sons and your daughters shine like a riverboat queen as she makes her way down through these clear blue waters. The prettiest sight I've ever seen. And a gambler calls out Little Joe. He passes out rolling a 7. Me, I caught a deuce, Lord, a 32 juice, and the queen took me straight on to heaven. So I put on my Sunday clothing, I put on my church-going shoes, make my way down to the river tonight. Lord, I'll sing those Evangeline blues. Evangeline, you wind through this country, and your waters flow straight down to the sea. And I've been a slave to these dice and a prisoner of this vice on the riverboats of Evangeline. Yes, and once you've set me free, once you've carried me away, I'll be rolling dice up in heaven tonight on the waves of Evangeline. yeah. Once you've set me free, once you've carried me away, I'll be rolling dice up in heaven tonight on the waves of Evangeline. And I'll put on my Sunday clothing, I'll put on my church-going shoes, make my way down to the river tonight, and I'll sing the Evangeline blues. I'll sing the Evangeline blues. I'll sing the Evangeline blues. Yeah.
Lovely. I love that. That has a great sound. It's definitely not a uke sound in the traditional sense at all, is it?
No, it has more akin to a tenor guitar or a guitar in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I a lot of my career is known as a ukulele player, and I've been fortunate enough to travel over half the world doing festivals and showcases and workshops and things like that as a ukulele instructor. And I seem to lean towards doing everything I can to negate the sound of the ukulele, but keep the form of the ukulele. I like the compactness. For all intents and purposes, this is a baritone uke, which means these strings are tuned in the same register as a guitar. But instead of a big guitar at 25-inch scale, it's 19 inches. Right. So this feels better to me, and it's, right. Like I said, I keep doing everything to negate it. Now, that's not to say that I don't play a regular uke. In fact, I have right beside me here, we'll do some stuff on it later, a lovely double neck ukulele, which is a tenor and a concert together that is all nylon strung, and I use that often as well. Right. So it's just a matter of what I'm playing, Yeah.
Did you write that one in the last couple of years then?
I wrote that one in 2014.
Okay.
Let me tell you a story. I started writing a series of songs, not deliberately. In 2012, I wrote a song called Learned Pigs and Fireproof Women, and sort of creating a montage of a scene at a carnival and a story. And what I didn't know when I wrote that song, or didn't anticipate when I wrote that song, is that I would be creating a landscape and characters that would start filtering through a lot of my writing over the years.
Oh, okay.
And what I've discovered as I'm going along is that I have all these songs that are pieces of a story that exists based upon the elements that began in Learned Pigs and Fireproof Women.
Great. So the thread continues, and you're branching out into areas, and it shows up in other songs.
Well, exactly.
Filter
and
into
so
your new songs.
I mentioned that I've started writing again, and one of the things I'm doing is I don't know what form this is going to take in the end, because we all know that CDs don't matter anymore. But I feel like I'm writing a show or a story, maybe more akin to a dramatic presentation, but I'm not with actors specifically. It's maybe I'm writing a long form music video. I don't know, but it's going to be this entire thread of this one character who begins in Learned Pigs and Fireproof Women, and Evangeline Blues, which I just performed, is the end of the story because it's him about to commit suicide. That's what the song is about. He's about to jump in the river and die because he's, whatever. Yeah. So I'm filling in all the gaps, and I'm putting together the pieces of this story and going, oh yeah, there's this, and then oh yeah, there's this, and they're all. I didn't even see it myself until years later. I'm looking at it going, this is him here. I could see it. I created the landscape for my story, the setting, and I introduced the characters, which then have had their own lives in different ways.
So you may end up with a full featured story going through, and it's interesting because CDs and albums have a bit of a resurgence, and some of that themed album stuff is actually coming back. I've seen. You know,
Yeah,
and it's got a niche market for sure.
yeah,
Because
it might
the
be.
world is all singles now, right? But
Oh yes, and I don't know. As a mature songwriter, no longer in the prime of my life and in the flowering of my career, so they
right.
say,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I want to chase singles at all. Like even if the
No,
songs are hooky and whatever, I don't want to go out and put out a bunch of individual songs to say,
right.
check out my new single is dropping. But I am feeling like putting this whole story together and figuring a way to present it to people.
Well, it'll
At the
make a great
risk of,
live show,
well, that's
right?
what I'm
Just
thinking.
up
I
on your
feel
own,
like
even, right? Yeah.
I feel like it's a live show. You know,
Maybe
you're a
multimedia.
performer. Well, definitely,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
ticking all the boxes. I'd love to sit here and tell you that it's going to be ready in 6 months, and I'm playing the Carlton with it at blah blah blah,
Right.
or
Yeah.
you know the Annapolis. I don't even know when it's going to be ready. I mean, this might
Right.
take another year for me to get completed.
Right. That's okay, right? It needs to take its time. I mean, that's partly the way songwriting happens sometimes for certain people. Some people sit down every day and they work it like a business religiously. They put in their 6 hours, 8 hours a day of co-writing and songwriting and dedicated function. Other people need to let it percolate, and some people go in spurts. You know, who knows?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Well, do you want to play another tune?
Certainly, yeah. I'll
Yeah.
play you something from my 2022 demo sessions.
Cool.
So in this, well, I'll let you hear it from itself.
Sure.
Standing at the crossroads, waiting for the devil to take his share. I saw the ghost of Robert Johnson. He was still standing there. He said, "Be careful what you ask for. In this world, it's always true. Devil's in the details, and you might just wind up screwed." I was playing Smokestack Lightning in a bar in Memphis, Tennessee. I saw the ghost of Fury Lewis. He was staring back at me. He said, "Be careful what you ask for. Oh, it's a natural fact. The devil might give you riches, but he'll damn sure take them back. Take them back. Be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. But when that bill comes due, Lord, you might regret it. Yeah, be careful what you ask for. That's what I say to you. Be careful what you ask for, no matter what you do. No matter what you do. Yeah, be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. When that bill comes due, Lord, you might regret it. Oh, be careful what you ask for. That's what I say to you. Be careful what you ask for, no matter what you do. Yeah, be careful what you ask for. In this world, there's lots of people going to take advantage of someone who's desperate for something. You can't always trust who you run into.
All right, Manitoba Hal playing one of his original songs. So, Hal, tell me a little bit about songwriting. What do you kind of sit down at a dedicated time and space to write, or do you just kind of wait for muse? How does that work for you?
It does and it doesn't. So, just to be clear, I have not written through the pandemic. I've only started writing as we're coming out of it.
Okay.
In my life, I find that in times of stress and difficulty, they might be good fodder for songs, but they are a terrible time to write songs. I
Gotcha.
tend to shut down and everything, and it's later on that I reflect on things and can deal with it.
As you process it, then the stuff comes out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have at times done both the methods that you mentioned. Back in 2013, I recorded an album at a cottage in Fort Coulonge, Quebec, that is owned by my manager Nicole Colbeck, and it's an off-grid cottage. It's solar powered. There's no cell phone service. It's far away from everything. And I went up there and I had a week, and I decided that I would dedicate my week to writing, and I wrote an entire album because there was nothing to distract me. There was no YouTube, no TV shows, no other voices. And I'm not going to tell you they were all great songs. That's not really the point. But I have done that. And in 2012, when I wrote the album with Learned Pigs and Fireproof Women, I did a songwriting challenge with my fan base where I got them to send me titles.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And I threw them all in a hat. And the commitment I made was that I would pull a name from a hat, a song from a hat, and I would write a song with that title.
Yep.
And that I would post a song every 2 days. My goal was to write 15 songs in 1 month. And so I would write a song, work it out, and then the next day I would make a little video and put it in a private group for the people who participated. Great. And then I would do the same again and again and again, right? And out of that time, I didn't write 15 songs, I'm sorry to say, but I did write 9 during that period. And then conversely, a lot of my life is waiting. I don't want to say waiting for inspiration because that sounds like I'm sitting there with bated breath. What I find works for me is allowing the space for creativity, but not the expectation that it will show up. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So if I fill my life with tasks and things like that, I will never write. What I need to have are large amounts of time that are completely unencumbered by tasks, duties, and things. And often I'm either jamming or noodling or whatever, and a song will come to me, or I'll find myself in times where I want to say otherwise distracted, but that sounds wrong. Like if I'm on a long distance road trip and I'm driving and I'm hours and hours in the car, I can only listen to podcasts or music for so long. I find it really annoying after a while in the vehicle. And so I end up driving a lot in silence, which some people would say is probably worse. But I hear the road noise and all that stuff, and it tends to spur creativity.
Right.
And sometimes the creativity doesn't amount to anything, but other times it's really good. And I do things like pull over, turn on a little recorder on my phone, and I'll start singing a line or even just reciting lyrics that are in my head and echoing. At the risk of tarnishing anyone with this brush, I think anybody who tells you they know what the secret to it is selling something, because every artist I know who is a serious writer tells me that they have no idea what really works. They sit down to do the writing every day, and some days they just can't write, or they're buying groceries and all of a sudden something the thing comes to them, ABBA, not that they're stalwarts of great writing, but the ABBA said that, a song like Take a Chance came to them while they were jogging, and the rhythm of their feet. Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance.
Like you say, there's no formula for it, but there's lots of tools that help you craft something after you've got the inspiration or you've got the stuff in some format.
Absolutely.
And Hal has just picked up a double-necked ukulele, custom built, and it is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, this is made by the same gentleman, Fred Casey, and we had there's a story behind this instrument, as would be expected. I was on tour and staying at his house one year, and I spent about a year thinking about this. And so I asked him at one point, how hard is it to make a double-necked acoustic instrument? And out came the whiskey and a few bit of conversation, and next thing I know, I'd ordered a double-neck instrument.
Have you written songs, or I presume you've arranged songs custom for that instrument and have used both necks during the song?
That was the intention. The reality is it has never really worked the way I wanted it to. It's not that it hasn't. There was one piece that I used to perform that did. So I use a lot of looping technology in my shows.
Right.
And I
Okay.
will sort of create a looping background. And that's one of the reasons I wanted the variety of tone. I wanted to have a couple of instruments at my disposal. And so I had one song where I would lay down a groove where this neck would basically be just doing
Kind of a
along with
bass,
the percussion.
ostinato-y kind of a thing, yeah?
Yeah, just sort of this kind of thing. You got that low G thing. And then I would come up here and, that kind of thing over top of it. And it worked, but it was the only song that ever combined both necks in the same song, in the same way. There is an old blues number I perform where I use both necks, and you got this sort of sweet little melody going on here. This is from a blues song from 1928. And it's just really sweet and beautiful at this point, And then at one point you come up to a climax. And it goes like this. Suddenly there's a lot more going on.
Right. So and you're just strumming the lower pitched neck with open strings, not playing a chord on it, so they just support what you're doing on the top neck.
Exactly.
Well, Manitoba Hal, let's hear a song off the double necked ukulele. And are you going to play the lower neck?
I am going to play the tenor neck.
Yeah.
We talked already about the thread of songs. This is Learned Pigs and Fireproof Women, because I wanted to give you that insight into the origins of the whole thing.
Great.
Start that over again. That'll be your edit point there. The carnival came to this rural town, and every fool wanna lay his money down. We got a Ferris wheel, we got games of chance, got a tunnel of love for pure romance. Men will believe what they see. If you put it on a poster, they will believe. Everybody wants to hear the bearded lady singing, and this sideshow's got everything. We've got learned pigs, fireproof women, and everybody'd pay $1 to see them. Got a piece of the one true cross, got the bones of a union boss. Now Jake Leg Chester and Bootleg Sam were working at the carnival, and they had a plan. Saturday night when the tent was full, they were gonna rob the carnival. They would grab the cash and jump a train, never come back to this town again. They would hide in the bushes till they hear the bell. They would grab the cash and run like hell from the learned pigs and the fireproof women, and everybody pay $1 to see them. I got a piece of the one true cross, got the bones of a union boss. Now the bearded lady was still singing a song when the Mississippi freight train came along. Jake Leg Chester grabbed the cash and ran as Bootleg held a gun on that ticket man. They ran for the tracks, but they missed the rail, and the dog-faced boy was still chasing his tail. Stashed the cash or paid the cost, so they hit it with the bones of the union boss. Now they never found the money, and I know it's a fact. The police came along and took I totally screwed that line up, but that's alright. They never found the money, and I know it's a fact. They took those boys away and they ain't coming back. The sheriff came around looking for the dough, but I hid it down in my bedroll, and I left that town without thinking twice. Found my own way to paradise. Bought myself a truck and a small sideshow, and every single summer now I hit the road with my learned pigs and my fireproof women, and everybody pay $1 to see them. I got a piece of the one true cross, and I got the bones of the union boss.
All right. Learned pigs and fireproof women.
Yeah, so I mean, there's three or more people in that song, but really that were introduced. But the main one, we don't even know his name yet, is the guy at the end who saw what happened, took the money, and benefited from it without committing the crime. I mean, in a way, he did commit the crime, but not the real crime. Not the original one.
So there's just a ton of threads that you could come off of that, and because a carnival sideshow kind of thing, there's just so many possibilities, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And
by the way, if you want to retake that, that's fine. But I don't mind the little.
I don't mind the glitch. I'm completely human about it. I learned a long time ago that doing the job perfectly and making a mistake in the job is the same thing. Nothing. The audience does not care. What they care about is how I deal with a mistake, not that the mistake was made.
Right.
And
performing is just a strange place to be sometimes.
Well, yeah, I always think that a performance, a live show maybe is a better way of saying it. A live show is a conversation between me and the audience.
Right.
And that means that it is unique to that situation in that moment. The energy of the room, my emotional or physical state at the time, all of it is totally in its own world. And there's practicing to know your craft and to know what you're trying to do, but you can't practice a conversation without the other side.
Right.
Right? So you never know what's going to happen. And so the performance is a completely new beast. And so, like you, I prefer to just play often. And then I'll go out there and make my mistakes in front of people, or my successes, my triumphs in front of people.
I'll share all the process, warts and all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Manitoba Hal here on Cove FM. Have we got another song in the bucket that you might like to share with folks?
Funny you say bucket. This is a song that came out on an album that I released in 2018 called Blues is in the Water. It received the nomination for Blues Album of the Year from Nova Scotia Music Society there.
Good.
And it didn't win, so it's also one of the many losers of the year, I guess.
Well, yeah, there's a lot more losers than winners of awards. And what do they mean anyways?
Back to, you said bucket. I talked about writing while you were on the road, and I wrote this song while I was coming over the north shore of Lake Superior one summer. And the song just hit me as I was driving.
Right.
And anyone familiar with that road knows that it's a 2-lane highway, and there are very few pull-offs, so there was nowhere to pull off and save this. So anyway, this is the song I wrote while I was driving down there. Loaded up my tackle box, grabbed my line and pole, set my course on down the road to my favorite fishing hole. I bait the hook and I set the line and I cast it all damn day, and I got nothing to show for it but that one that got away. And there's plenty of fish, plenty of fish, there's plenty of fish in that deep blue sea. Yeah, there's plenty of fish, there's plenty of fish. Everybody's catching but me. Now you've heard it said, you give a man a fish and you'll feed him for a day. If you teach that same man to fish, he'll sit in a boat all day. My granddad taught me how to fish, and he said, here's what you gotta know. You chase her until she catches you, that is all she wrote. There's plenty of fish, there's plenty of fish, there's plenty of fish in that deep blue sea. Yeah, there's plenty of fish, there's plenty of fish. Say everybody's catching but me. Now, I live down in Shelburne, Nova Scotia, and for those of you who know Shelburne, you know that one of our major industries down here is lobster fishing, and we've got this beautiful harbor that is noted as the 3rd best natural harbor in the world. Right down on the water is a bar called the Sea Dog Saloon, or more accurately, I should say, right down on the water was a bar named the Sea Dog Saloon. It closed during the pandemic. It's now in private hands. But there was a lovely music scene there, and I would go down on a Friday night, and that's where you'd listen to live music and hang out with your friends. And there's a waitress there named Wanda. Wanda's still around, but she's not waitressing anywhere that I know of. But she's talked about it in this next verse, and she has heard it, so I'm not denigrating her when I include her. It goes like this. I wandered down to the Sea Dog to ask for some advice. Wanda's always got a word, but it ain't always nice. Wanda told me how you got to double check your bait. Make sure your rod is working, don't get started too damn late. There's plenty of fish, there's plenty of fish, there's plenty of fish. That deep blue sea, yes, plenty of fish, there's plenty of fish. Said everybody's catching but me. Now, once I wrote that song, that kind of is the end of it right there. It's a little bit of a ditty, but I realized there's this old classic song that comes from a group called Pinkard and Bowden that really feels like the same song. It sounds like this. I was a cook, she was a waitress, down at Salty Sam's Seafood Cafe. And somewhere beneath the clam juice and the seaweed salad, some little shrimp just lured her away. Well, I lobster, I never flounder. He threw his line around her and they drove off in his cart. Oh, I lobster, I never flounder. I octopus his face in, he'll only break her heart. Yeah. So I said, just squid and leave me for that piano tuna. If you want to trout something new. She was the best I ever had, now my life has no porpoise. And oh my God, I love her, yes I do. Well, I lobster, I never flounder. He threw his line around her and they drove off in his cart. Yes, I lobster, I never flounder. I octopus his face in, he'll only break her heart. Well, I swordfish, she'd come back to me. You know, we had a whale of a good time. But I kelp her picture in my walleye just for the halibut. I don't think she kelped mine in her perch, though. Anyway, I get told I go on, and if I don't shut up soon, you folks are going to have a haddock. That's right, I said haddock, you're not losing your herring. Anyway, if I don't finish soon, it'll be a mackerel to get out of here alive. So, well, I lobster, I never flounder. He threw his line around her and they drove off in his cart. Oh, I lobster, and I never flounder. I octopus his face in, he'll only break her heart. Frankly, Scallop, I don't give a clam.
That's great. I remember hearing that song.
Yes.
That's
yeah, it was
great.
in the 70s, I think, is when it was on the radio.
Yeah. Well, that would have been the last time I probably heard it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, but yes, as soon as I finished Plenty of Fish, I realized that it is the preamble to I Lobster and Never Flounder.
That's great. Hey, Hal, when did you start playing? Did you start playing as a kid and kind of thing?
No, I was a late bloomer. I didn't pick up an instrument till I was 18 years old. So that would have been
a while back.
Yeah, it would have been a while back. It was about
back
83.
in the 80s.
1983. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, 83 is about when I started. I always think it's interesting, but then again, isn't everybody's life interesting to themselves? I failed high school band. Nobody thought I should be a musician in my life. I wasn't. That was not the path I was headed on. And I was sitting with a friend at his house. He lived in a mobile home in Abbotsford, British Columbia. Mm-hmm. And I was hanging out with him one night, and he picked up his acoustic guitar and jammed to some record. I don't know what. In my head, I think it was Eric Clapton. I think he was playing to like Cocaine or something, you know. But he had the record on, and he was just noodling away. And excuse me. And in that moment, I had what I refer to as an out-of-body experience, an epiphany. I saw the rest of my life. I tried explaining to people, no one understood, but I knew right in that moment that I was a musician, that was what I was supposed to be doing with my time.
Wow.
And I got a guitar and I started trying to learn, and I was terrible. My mom would come down and she'd say, "Oh my gosh, you know you're not on key, right?" And I would say, "Doesn't matter. And she'd say, what do you mean it doesn't matter? I said, it's a muscle. I have to train it, and I can't train it unless I'm terrible. If I sing
Right.
and I'm not great, that's me using it, learning to control it,
Right.
And I have to do that to be anything. Not that I
Wow.
think I'm great, but I had the presence of mind, even when I was young and knew nothing, to know that you don't suddenly become great with it. I
Right.
had to work at it.
Right. Right.
And so I just started practicing, learning anything I could learn, digging into it, writing. I didn't write a lot of songs then. I mostly was doing covers and doing things like, John Mellencamp songs,
Sure.
Small Town
Yep.
and Jack and Diane.
So, do you do many covers in your show now?
I do a lot of old blues covers mostly.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
really do a lot of pop stuff, although
Right.
I could. I just have, because I getting slightly off a track. Most of my career became this blues guy doing old slide blues and things like that.
Right.
And so when I transitioned into being a ukulele player, I just took that same world. So I had already moved away from the covers, but I started out playing in open mics, doing things like Moon Shadow, the old.
Yep.
And
T for the
Gordon
Tillerman
Lightfoot
stuff
tunes
yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. I even ended up having a show touring in the prairies for a while, doing pop hits, things like "Life Is a Highway" and all that stuff with sequences and drum loops and
Right.
all that stuff. So I have done all that, but how this leads into the writing is. I had this whole career playing cover shows in bars, and then I had this moment, much like that moment where I knew I'd be a musician the rest of my life. I was playing in Northern Ontario in February, and I had this gig. I was living in Winnipeg, and I had this gig that was in Red Lake, Ontario. And for those who know the area will know that it's about 5.5 hours from Winnipeg. You drive east into Ontario, and you take Highway 105 north. And it's a mining community. It's a lovely area. It is not a place you really want to go in February. But
No.
that being said, I had that gig, and my duo was driving up there, and we had one mishap after another on the road. We had flat tires. One flat tire caused our trailer. Well, we had a trailer that was hauling our gear, and one of the flats was on the trailer. And that caused it to crash down, and we had to brace the leaf spring, and we didn't know at the time, but it damaged some of our gear. We didn't find out till we got to Red Lake. We had flat tires on the car. We finally we got as far as Kenora, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours from Winnipeg, and 40 below, middle of the night, we're freezing. We can't go on. The vehicle is like we're limping. The morning comes, we get a garage to help us fix up something, and we limp back to Winnipeg. And I'm about to bail on the show. I'm about to call my agent at the time and say that we are not going to make it. We've had so many vehicle troubles, and I knew it was going to cause us trouble, but what do? You can't do it. And a buddy of mine said, "Don't worry, I've got my car fixed," and he was able to fix it just in time for us to leave and make it.
Right.
So we took off, and we finally made it there. We finally made it there almost 32 hours after we initially left. Was when we finally made it to Red Lake after 5 hours, a place 5 hours away. And we found out our gear was broken, and our buddy who drove us up turned around and drove back to Winnipeg to replace the gear for the next night. Anyway, long story short, on the way home from this gig, which was terrible, by the way. I mean, it was playing in a bar. We were not in good shape because of everything we'd just been through. They had one spotlight, one like white floodlight on the stage. I mean, it was nothing glorious or romantic about that gig. And fortunately for me, no one in Red Lake remembers those days for me because I've been up there and played many times since, and no one has remembered that I was in that band. But anyway, we had more trouble on the way home, and I took this as a great sign from the universe that I was not doing the right thing.
Right.
And so
set your path elsewhere.
I quit. I got a day job somewhere. I can't even remember what I went on to do, but I went on to get a day job, and a few years later, I found myself. I owned a business at the time, and things were not going really good. I needed revenue. We weren't making as much as I needed, and so I decided, I can play guitar. I should just go, and this is in the early days of the coffee house circuit. Do you remember the coffee house circuit?
I do.
Where that was the venue, where it was before Starbucks was real big, so
You
everyone would
played
go
the
to these
Hobble
coffee
in
roasters.
Edmonton or whatever. And,
Yeah.
all those places, yeah.
And I started doing coffee houses all around Winnipeg and later all around the West Coast. But I went into these coffee houses, and I decided that there were two things that the coffee house circuit gave me, and that was I wasn't beholden to the owner of the venue to only play the hits, because they weren't really paying. It was like they might give you a tiny honorarium, but really you were playing for people throwing money in a tip jar.
Yeah.
And so I could do whatever I wanted. And so I started doing some of the songs I really wanted to do. And I don't know why I decided to start writing something, but I did. And at that point, someone came up to me and said, your writing sounds a lot like the blues. And I really didn't consciously know much about the blues at that point. But I had listened to it. I'd listened to Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee and Stevie Ray Vaughan and things like that. And so I started consciously listening and learning to play the blues. And that was like this schism, it's like the whole universe took me off in this other direction. And that's where my whole career lived. So the early days were the understanding what kind of work I was doing.
Right.
And then this is where I've been creating and living, is over here.
Right. And I find that, I've talked with a few people along the way. Think about, early years of doing cover tunes. You learn a lot about the craft of songwriting from the backside of it, kind of, and about performance, of course, and getting your chops on your instrument. And if you can cop a cover song reasonably well, you learn a lot, right? And 10, 15 years doing that makes a lot of impact on how you are as a person as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
I was a terrible cover act.
I think I am too. But I was just thinking, do you do much co-writing now?
Some, not as much as I would like in some ways. I don't know if it's I was going to say a weakness on my part, but I don't think that's what I mean. I'm not comfortable sharing the raw underbelly of creation with another person.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I only am willing to share it once it's at a certain point, and then I'm reluctant to change certain elements.
Right.
So I've run into co-writing, and people are like, "Oh, we should change that to that," and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not what I'm trying to say. That it's like, I've found very few people that I can sort of willingly go through that process with.
It's not for everybody, and not everybody is your co-writer, right?
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And you have to leave a lot of ego at the door when you go into a co-writing session. And
yeah. And I'd like to think that that's exactly where I'm at, that I can do that. But I have to also be realistic and say that, by the time I'm sitting down with something that I think is a song,
right,
it's kind of already a song. My best situations of co-writing have been when I've had friends of mine hand me lyric sheets, and I've taken them away, and those have become really great co-writes.
Well, good.
And I had one case where I wrote a song with a friend of mine, and he recorded a version of the song completely different than what I took away from the writing. So when I wrote it in an open D slide blues lick thing world, and when he took it away, he recorded it in an E minor. And after hearing his version, I went, "That's a better version of the song."
Right.
And so I started doing his version,
Right.
And so in those situations, the writing has been back and forth.
Right.
That same fellow, and he's been my most prolific co-writer. We've had many different variations of things we've done. One of my favorites was we wrote one song where it was kind of an exercise. It turned out to be a good song, I think, but I had these ideas I used to try to work on, and in this case, I wanted to write a song where our protagonist was in a situation where stuff happened around him, and everybody thought he was guilty, and that all the language made him guilty, but in a circumstantial way.
Ah.
Right? But
Okay.
there was nothing that actually said he did it. But the whole song makes you absolutely sure he did. And so we sat down and wrote this murder. And the idea was that, this guy was really behind it all. But really, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's not really guilty.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's neat how songs develop, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I found, when I first started writing songs, I did a lot of stuff like, about me and my perspective and or my experiences. And now, most of what I write now are stories of other people.
Right.
They're
Either real
filtered
or
through my
imagined.
life, but they're not real or imagined. They're filtered through my life, but they're not. There's no personal component to it. I'm not singing about my broken heart. So if I'm singing a really sad song, it's not about me.
Right.
I've written some songs where people think I'm like on the verge of suicide the way the song sounds, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, it has nothing to do with me. It's just a really great song,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Manitoba Hal, how about if we you can play a happy song or a sad song or an in-between song. Do you want to do another one?
I will. I will send us out with a song that I wrote in the Badlands of Alberta. I was camping. I was on tour in the summer of 2018. I think it was 2018. It might be 2017. I can't remember anymore. I had a couple days off. And so it was August. It was very hot. And I decided that I would get this campsite on a little place by a lake.
Right.
And if you've been to the Badlands of Alberta, you know what I'm talking about when I say it.
Grew up in Alberta.
For those who haven't been to the Badlands of Alberta, vegetation is rather sparse. Would be a good way to put it.
It's a desert.
So it's a desert. Yeah, it's pretty rough. And so I found this one campsite, and they had this lake, and due to clever use of irrigation and everything, there were trees all around it, and you could pay extra for a campsite that had trees.
Right.
So I sprung for the campsite with the tree. And when I got to my campsite, the only one left, the tree was about 3.5 feet tall. It was a sapling that had been planted. So I sat there baking in the sun for the 2 days I was there. I swam the lake a little bit, but I was really baking in the sun. But I wrote this song. Now, the song has nothing to do with that story other than that's where it happened.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
But I love that story of paying for a campsite with a tree and getting a sapling that I keep telling it. Anyway, yeah. So my manager Nicole has these songwriting challenges. She runs creativity challenges on Facebook and with her clients, and she had a prompt out for this song, but ironically I had written it right before the prompt, but it turned out to fit the prompt perfectly. So the third verse is where it really matches up to what she was going for. Her son is an organic farmer in the Ottawa region, which is where they live. And the third verse is all about farming.
All right.
If I was a river, I would flow free, and I could slip past any boulder that's trying to stop me. Yes, if I was water, I could flow like that. And you couldn't stop me, 'cause I'm a natural fact. And if I was a bird, I would fly free, not be held in a cage. Man, you couldn't catch me. Yes, if I had wings, I would take to the sky and not be held on the ground, 'cause that's no way to fly. I'm not a river on my way to the sea, not a bird in the sky, I cannot fly free. I am just a man blessed by love. I'm blessed by love. I am blessed by love. Now if I was soil, I'd be fresh and clean, and I would grow lots of food, more than you would ever need. Yes, if I was dirt, oh, I'd be a home for the trees. I'd be a bed for the river, I'd be the ground for your feet. But I'm not a river on my way to the sea, not a bird in the sky, I cannot fly free. I am just a man blessed by love, blessed by love. I am blessed by love. I'm not a river on my way to the sea, not a bird in the sky, oh, I cannot fly free. I am just a man blessed by love. I'm blessed by love. I am blessed by love. I'm blessed by love. I'm blessed by love. Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Manitoba Hal. Thanks for joining us on Songwriters from Here and Away, Hal. We will look for you online and hear your tunes there. Okay, that's Songwriters from Here and Away. I'm Robert Campbell, and look for you on the next show.